Good morning. Welcome back to the Retirement Report. I'm Hank Parrott, your host. All right, I've been sharing with you some things in preparing for retirement. One of those being key elements of a good retirement income plan. Be thinking of essential expenses versus discretionary expenses. In other words, home and health care, that you have utilities, food, all those kind of things, health care expenses, and discretionary being travel, philanthropy, again, leisure activities that you pursue, hobbies. So essential income needs, think in terms of housing costs, utilities, transportation, food and household goods, health care and long-term care premiums, and debt payments. Okay, now hopefully as you going into retirement, if you have a debt payment, the only one hopefully at that point might be a mortgage, and ideally we would want to have everything paid off. The mortgage may be the exception, in particular with rates so low. I'm not pushing so much about worrying about paying off a mortgage that may only have a 3% interest rate, for instance. You're going to be making more on your money ideally than you are the cost of that, so it's not an urgency on it. Now think in terms of managing your risk to meet your goals. Volatility is one of those. The more volatility in the market, we were just talking about the potential for a bear market. We've had a tremendous amount of volatility this year. Longevity being another that I led off with. Think of that longevity. The longer we're living, the more risk, or the more that magnifies the risk. So inflation is a bigger concern when we're living a long time, right? The longer you live, the more inflation is going to affect you. Market volatility, the more it's going to affect you. Worrying about running out of money. Sequence of returns risk being one of the ones that I talked about. That sequence of returns, we've talked about before on the show, keep in mind, that means if going into a bear market, if you're taking income out, it's going to set you up for a much higher risk of running out of money in retirement than if you've planned for that. That's why we have planned for that risk. We don't know if we're going into a bear market or a bull market, so we have to plan for both. That way we're going to be covered. We're going to have the income we need without having to worry about the market either causing us to have to reduce our income or worry about running out of money. Good planning is going to do that, and it starts with how you do your asset allocation, and as I mentioned, making sure you've got that income piece covered. Think of income over the next 3 to 5 years, what you're going to need, and that's going to be invested differently than income I'm going to need in 6 to 10 years, or money that I'm going to need in 10 plus years. Okay, how I set up my portfolio, how I set up my asset allocation, other strategies that I bring to bear, all of that have a bearing on the time frame, time horizon as well. All right, there's a lot more to cover, which is why we come back to each and every week, right? Hopefully this has been helpful for you this week, and that you'll join me here each and every week on the Retirement Report.